what it is that I do and why do I do it. I'm going to tell you very, very briefly. So basically, when I was 9, I went to a small exclusive private school here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was told that I wasn't good enough to be in that school. And honestly, I'll spare you the long story, but it really affected me throughout my school years early into my career. And I often wondered who gets to decide who's good enough. And I eventually spent 2 decades working with world-class athletes and world-class business professionals. And now I specialize in mental toughness for women in the workplace, really helping women to unlock, honestly, what's already there. Now, in part 1, we spoke about clarity, how to create a work-life counterbalance, and also how to create a legacy plan. If you were not with us, do not worry at all. I will be sure that you get the recording for that. Today, we're going to talk about courage, because once we're clear on what it is that we want and why we care so deeply, honestly, every time we're climbing and we're ascending and we're trying to reach that next level, it's going to take a lot of courage, and the world's most successful people are remarkably courageous. So I'm going to uncover some of those tips and tools and habits really to unlock what's already there so you can achieve that next level of impact and joy. All right. So jumping in, this is me. You can look me up. I will spare talking about myself too much. And I want to let you know, after the first webinar, I sent out a form to ask for input. A lot of it was good. A couple people complained because I offered a 30-minute session with myself at the end. And if that is attractive to you, go ahead. I want to encourage you to stay till the end. It wasn't selling. I'm really glad that they complained about it because I wanted to talk about it. I am giving on this webinar. I am not selling or asking for anything in return. I am giving. I want to be very transparent about that and very clear. The only thing that I ask is that you wait until the very end, because I have a lot of content to give you in this half an hour. And that's that. So I wanted to bring that up. Also, going forward, world-class performers do not run from one thing to the other. In other words, if you were a track athlete, you would not go from, you know, the dressing room and just go run the Olympics, right? So what we have to do is, what we want to do is, it's like our Olympics as well. So if you have any type of crucial interaction, whether it's a one-on-one conversation, a small meeting, you're speaking from a large stage, you have a presentation, whatever it can be your Olympics. And it's really important that right off the bat, you start understanding that building courage it's a learned skill, and it takes practice, and it also takes preparation. So before we jump in with a lot of fast and furious content and actual tips and tools, I want you to transition, to prepare. So what I want you to do, if you're sitting, whether you're sitting down or standing, if you're driving, please do not do this. But if you're sitting down or standing and not driving, I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And then when you exhale, I want your feet to sink into the ground. So just try it one more time with me, okay? Inhale, and then exhale. When you exhale, I want you to get in the habit of just thinking of your breath and thinking of your feet sinking into the ground. So moving on through your day, if you have important interactions, one-on-one, small group, presentations, or maybe you're even speaking from a large stage, it's very important to have transitions. Block that time, schedule it into your calendar, and make sure that you're not running from one thing to the other, especially if you're going into something that is high stakes or highly important. All right, you guys following me? Okay, you can raise your hands. Okay, that would be awesome. Okay, thanks so much. All right, so what's the purpose of our time together? It's to help you to build courage, but also to help you stop feeling overcommitted and undersupported. And that requires remarkable courage, because we as women have to speak up for what we want and deserve if we don't want this to happen anymore, if we want it to stop. And it's going to take courage. So one of my goals for you today is to give you the tools so you can stop feeling overcommitted and undersupported. And what is the goal for our time together? The goal that I have for our time together is to help you stop putting limitations on your dreams and start making more of an impact. The impact that I know you want and deserve. And I'm not only talking about impact, but I'm also talking about that next level of impact, and also that next level of joy that you want and deserve, okay? And then you might be saying, this all sounds great, but how are you gonna do this? So the first way is so you can really understand how to face what you fear and speak up for what you want and deserve. Most of us inherently know that we need to speak up, that we deserve to speak up, but we don't have the tools to understand how to be courageous. We know that we should be courageous and that we deserve to be courageous, but we don't necessarily have the tools. So I'm going to be sharing world-class tips, tools, and habits on how to develop this muscle. And also how to do what it takes to become more emotionally agile and more confident. So whenever we are in a high pressure or high stakes conversation, or even in the longer term, if we want a promotion or a raise, or we want to pivot from one career or from one level of our career to the other, maybe we want to pivot out, maybe we want to change directions, it's going to take a lot of courage, and emotions are what drives our behavior and what's going to affect our courage. So we're going to teach you how to be emotionally agile, especially in high pressure conversations, so you can have the impact that you want and deserve, and also how to be emotionally agile when you are making a pivot. All right, you guys following me? Okay, awesome. And okay, thanks. I see Anne and Carol, thanks so much for letting me know. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out, and some of you may have seen this before, but it's going to take roughly 217 years for women to achieve gender parity. And this, what I want to explain about this graph is that, yes, that this pay is very important and that women do not get paid as much as men. However, this gender parity is important because it's much more costly than this graph exemplifies. There was a study by Gallup a couple years back, and roughly US companies, let me roll back a little, only 17% of US employees are actively engaged. Now, what does that mean? It means that the rest, 83%, if I can do the math, are not actively engaged, they're not truly happy at work. And a lot of this has to do with not feeling heard and not speaking up, because it is a human drive to feel like we're contributing and like we're being heard. And this is costing US companies upwards of $550 billion a year. Now, if you're looking to go out on your own, or you're looking to scale within your company or outside your company, that could be costing you a lot of money too. And so we want to make sure that you have the clarity on what you want, that you believe in yourself, that you can go after it. And then today we're going to talk about how to develop the courage, the confidence, and the emotional agility to accelerate your progress towards that means, and also to perform under pressure. Okay? Now, does anyone know who this is? Oh wait, I guess I have her name on there. Okay, I cheated. But anyways, this is Gabriella Schuster. She's a VP over at Microsoft, and she is she's remarkable, period, but she's remarkably courageous. She goes after what she wants. She is really an advocate for women in the workplace. But you know what? She has fear and doubt too. So the message here is that everyone has fear and doubt. But what we're going to talk about today is how do you use it to your advantage rather than allowing it to slow you down. You know, and to give you an example, I think it was last year, there was an initiative that Gabriella Schuster was pushing through, and it had to do with the rights that people were having with some of the software from Microsoft, and it was a huge initiative. And for her to speak up and have a voice about this, it took remarkable courage. And she was even talking about how she was a little bit full of fear and doubt a little bit, but she knew it was the right thing to do. So it's not about doing away with fear and doubt and maybe even anger and those negative emotions. It's about how to use them and how to proceed anyway. And we're going to learn about those tools today. And I just list Gabriella Schuster because she's an amazing, she exemplifies all that. All right, so what happens when we are feeling overcommitted and undersupported? What happens is our ability to have an impact goes down. Our motivation goes down, our creativity goes down, our productivity goes down. And that's not where you want to be. That's probably most ambitious women, like all of you, I'm sure, on the line on this live coaching training today, probably are highly ambitious, right? And we don't, if we're feeling not motivated, or productivity is lacking, or we kind of feel like this young woman who's in this photo, then it's not congruent with who we are. And so that also doesn't really make us happy. And then also, if we start to put limitations on our dreams, I mean, the things that we know in our heart that we really want to bring to life, if we start putting limitations on those and really not having the impact that we want and deserve, then it is, of course, terrible for us. But then who else does it impact? How does it impact your family, your colleagues, your company, and also those who you serve? So these issues are incredibly important, and to move past them, you're going to have to be remarkably courageous. Now, sometimes we lose our capes, and this is kind of a funny picture, but does anyone remember way back in the day when they were younger, or if they have kids that say when they're little, let's say in preschool, they're going to fly around and save the world? Like, that's pretty much how we all come into the world. But then because of certain situations, sometimes we lose our capes. And so in my case, it was 9 years old, and I got told by someone, the principal of my school, that I wasn't a good enough student. And that really affected me. And I accumulated a couple of failures on the way, didn't know how to manage them. And I had really taken my cape off at 9 years old. And so I'm wondering, has anyone ever tried something and quit? Has anyone ever felt like they've lost their cape? In other words, like there's something that in their heart, but they're just really not going after it wholeheartedly. It looks like Caroline reached out. Thank you so much for your honesty. I appreciate that. And so I just wanted to share that, I don't know if you follow Marty Seligman, but he has written the book Learned Optimism. And if we hear things by someone influential in our lives around when we are younger, under the age of 12, then it can impact us. It affects what's called our explanatory style. Okay, and it's very important. So you need to have the tools. If you had someone who was really supporting you and giving you these tools, great. But if you didn't, then we need to kind of break that down and give you the tools, and that's what we're going to do today. Now, the science says that you can achieve beyond the standard means. So if you have something in your heart that you're like, I don't know, this is a little crazy, then the science really supports you that says, yes, in fact, you can do it. So whether it's Carol Dweck's Mindset or any of these other amazing books, I was so bold to put my book at the end, Zoned In. If it can be in the presence and company of these other amazing books, I'm super honored. But the science is really supporting you. So let's move forward and learn some of these tools. All right, so just bear with me here. So we're just gonna take one breath because we're gonna jump in fast and furious. We're at about 20 minutes after the hour. So I'm going to give you a lot of actionable content in the next few minutes, okay? So we're gonna do one breath. So this is how I want it to go. I want you to inhale, and when you exhale, I just want you to listen to your breath and feel your feet sinking into the ground. Okay, you ready? All right, awesome. Let's try and turn this slide here. There we go. All right, so I want you to feel like her. I love this slide. So when you are thinking about your career, whether you're in a job or whether you want to pivot or you're on your own, I want you to go after it every day feeling like this woman. I mean, I wish I looked this young, but I feel like her every morning, like I am going after it. So I want you to feel that way. Now, in order to stop feeling overcommitted and undersupported, it's really important that you learn how to unlock your superpower. Now, before we talk about that, I want you to guess who this quote is. And it says, when you have decided what you believe, what you feel must be done, have the courage to stand alone and be counted. Does anyone know who that is? You can type it in the chat if you do. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm gonna give it away, okay? It's Eleanor Roosevelt, who loves her. All right, so here's what your superpower is. Your superpower is really learning how to optimize your emotions, how to take even the negative emotions and use them to your advantage. So I have something called the Courage One Thing worksheet. So what I want you to think about, I'm gonna explain this. We don't have the time to let you walk through the entire thing, but after this, You can download it when you get this email, when that email comes through with all the resources for me, and then I want you to think this through, but I'm gonna explain it right now. I want you to think about the one thing that's most important to you right now. Really important. So I want the one thing that if you told somebody, they might think it's a little crazy. You know, what's really in your heart right now. And then also understand why it's worth fighting for, okay? And then finally, I want to know one emotion that's surrounding it. So for example, I work with a woman, Nancy, and Nancy is a senior HR director. And she is always last in the weekly meeting with the CEO and the CEO staff. And she feels like she doesn't have a voice for her people. Okay, so the thing that's most important for her now is to not be last in that meeting. And it's worth fighting for because she wants to have a voice for all of the employees in the company that she supports. But the emotion associated with it is fear. Fear that the CEO is going to have a little backlash because he's already told her that, you know, the chief revenue officer is way more important. She needs to stay last, all these things that make me crazy. But that's another conversation for another day. She needs to speak up for herself, but she's being held back by fear. So I want you to start thinking about what is important to you, why is it worth fighting for, and also what is the emotion associated with it. Because once you raise your level of awareness and you know what that emotion is, then we can look it in the face and we can work with it a little bit, all right? So are you guys following me so far? Okay, awesome. Thanks for raising your hand, Caroline. All right, so we're gonna move along. And then also, at the end of this too, I want you to think about who and why. In other words, you know, it's very motivating and helps us to be courageous if we think about who are we fighting for besides ourselves. So in the case of Nancy, my client, she was fighting for the employees in her company. Okay, that was her who. And her why is to make sure that they were supported like they deserve to be. Okay, so I want you also to think a little bit outside of yourself, okay? And I know there's some questions and comments in the chat. I'm gonna look at those at the end, okay? Because we have a lot to go through, but keep putting them in there. I wanna see them. And then one thing, I'm really gonna hold it to the fire right now. I wanna know how you'll take bold action. And this is very specific. So for example, when I was working with Nancy, I said, okay, well, you know, let's go. What are you going to do? And she's like, well, I need to talk to the CEO. I'm like, when are you going to do it? She's like, I don't know, next week. I'm like, no, when are you going to do it? So it's like, okay, I'm going to do it Wednesday. I'm going to see if, you know, I can come in like part of his lunch hour sometime between 12 and 1 on Wednesday. I'm like, great. So in other words, when I say take bold action, it's not vague. It's very specific. And then I want you also to start telling people. So I'm like, okay, so you have this blocked into your calendar. I want you to go home and, you know, tell your husband that you're doing this, you know, share it with a friend that you can confide in, because socializing what you're going to do is an amazing motivator, okay? So this is a sheet that I want you to print out and think about. Take some time for yourself. Go to a coffee shop. Go somewhere where you're not going to be bothered and really work through this, okay? And then this, I won't spend too long. I mean, everybody thinks their kids are awesome. I'm going to tell you what this has to do with you guys. Ryan on the left, this guy over here, he was 11. He wanted to play tennis for the University of California. And the reason, and Megan has a severe visual processing learning disability, but she wanted to go to a 4-year college. And the reason why I bring kids up, or my kids up, or anybody's kids up, is because if you think you're a role model or you're influential, or if you don't think you are, you are. You are role modeling for the people that matter the most. And for Ryan, he's small, in case you can't tell. And everyone said, you're never gonna do it. There's no way, no, never gonna play Division I, nonetheless, for the University of California. But you know what? We had a plan. You know, and he had seen me do things that I was like, I don't know, this is crazy and impossible, but, you know, we're going after it. All right. And the same thing with Megan. She said, you know, they told her, do not take these classes. You shouldn't take 3 years of a language. You should not take, you know, Algebra 2 trig. You can't do it. It's too hard. So I just bring this up there, whether they're kids, your nieces, whether they're colleagues, anyone in your family, people are watching you. And I don't mean this to sound disingenuous at all, but what I'm talking to you about, it's more about you. It's not only about you, is what I'm trying to say. It is about you. We want that next level of impact. We want you to be happy. But the thing is, the people in your life need you to be happy too. Okay? You guys following me? Okay, awesome. And then the second I called a secret, if I may. The second thing that we're going to talk about is how to stop putting limitations on your dreams and making more of an impact. So I went out on a limb. I got a quote from Beyonce. I know you are all professional, amazing women. I did not know how Beyonce would resonate with you guys, but I loved her quote. It says, when I'm not feeling at my best, I ask myself, what are you going to do about it? And I use this negativity to fuel the transformation into a better me. So we're starting to learn how to use those emotions to our advantage, and I thought that really exemplified that. Now, how you're going to do this is to become more emotionally agile and more confident. This just takes practice. It is a muscle that needs to be flexed. If you think about all of the amazing people that you know that are achieving amazing things, they learn how to do that. They probably had a lot of support starting from when they were very young, or a lot of support at least in the last couple years to get where they are. And I also, which I talked about in part one, I want to have you honor the path that you've already traveled and the things that you've already accomplished. Okay, let's start from a place of compassion, okay? And also understand that the people that you look up to and the people that you strive to be like, or maybe the things that you strive to do, a lot of people have had a lot of support and a lot of practice to be confident. All right, so we're actually on target. Awesome. Now I'm talking super fast, so slow me down. I know there's some questions coming in the chat. I'm going to look at them in a couple minutes, but I want to make sure to get through these next couple of slides. This is the same content that I teach world-class athletes and business performers in my, and also my clients in my one-on-one, my small group, when I speak from a large stage. We even taught this when I opened the Women of Silicon Valley conference back in May. So I want to share it with you. This is called the emotional wheel. Okay, we perform our best, or we're in the zone, so to speak, when we're between 11 and 1 o'clock. Okay, so I want you to keep this in mind when you are going into the next crucial conversation at work or at home. It could be for any crucial conversation. Because what happens is, if we start thinking about past events, so maybe you had a past conversation that didn't go very well. So if you think about my client, Nancy, the last time she talked to her CEO, it did not go well. He flat out said no. He said that his sales executives are basically more important. She's not revenue generating. And the answer was no. Okay, so this was in the past. If she's not going to worry about that too much, if she worries about it too much, it's going to take her from the green into the yellow and possibly into the red if she lets herself get really infuriated about it, which is totally normal, but it's not going to allow her to be zoned in and to present her best self when she's going to that next conversation. Do you guys follow me? Okay, awesome. And then if you start to get into the future towards 1 o'clock, those are all the what ifs. What if I talk to him and he says no again? What if I talk to him and he gets so angry that I don't even get to go to the meetings anymore? What if, what if, what if? Okay, and so those are putting you into the future. Best case scenario, it's distracting. And worst case scenario, it's going to have a meeting go south. So, or an interaction or a presentation or a speech or what have you. So has anyone ever prepared relentlessly, known that they are capable, and then shown up and just kind of fallen apart? Or shown up and known that it was not their best work and been really frustrated after? I think we all have. You know, Andrea, Caroline, thank you so much for raising your hands. Any person who has put themselves out there, which I admire everyone for doing that, that's all happened to us. So I want to make sure it doesn't happen to you. Now, there's something that I'm going to go through quickly. It's called the RRS method for leveling up. And I'm going to give you a worksheet for it. So don't worry. We're going to go through it pretty quickly. So don't worry about filling it all in. You're going to get the worksheet. I just want to go through it. Now, RRS is an acronym. Same thing I teach Olympians when they're going to prepare. Same thing I teach my one-on-one clients before they're going into high-stakes conversations. The first thing to do is to recognize which emotions you're feeling. So in other words, you're going to list an example when you fill this out of a high-pressure, very important situation that really matters, and list the emotion that's associated with it. So in other words, when it comes to Nancy talking to the CEO, she was really fearful. Okay, so we need to raise our level of awareness because emotions demand to be recognized. So has everyone ever said, oh, don't worry, it'll be fine? Okay, we've either said that to ourselves, most of us, or we've counseled other people to don't worry, it'll be fine. Even if we're talking to our kids about a test, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine, right? But it doesn't work. We have to actually recognize them, acknowledge them, and validate them. So what I taught her to do is to think, you know, I'm really fearful about this meeting and how it might go with the CEO, and it's okay. So in other words, you're making peace with it, okay? It immediately diffuses it a little bit, okay? And then second, the second R in the RRS is release. So release the emotions that don't serve you. Do you remember when we were doing the transitions a couple times? That's a great way of releasing emotions, okay? When you're gonna inhale and exhale. So now when you exhale, when you inhale, excuse me, you're gonna think of that negative emotion. Let's say that fear talking to the CEO, you're gonna inhale and think of it coming towards you. And when you exhale, you feel it passing through you, okay? Very strange concept. I want you to wrap your head around that for a second. So the next time you're feeling an emotion associated with something and that emotion's not going to serve you, I want you to recognize it, acknowledge it, and validate it. I'm fearful and it's okay. I'm worried and it's okay. I have doubt and it's okay. And then you want to take a deep breath and think of that fear or doubt or whatever coming towards you. And then when you exhale, it just passes through you. Okay? And then if you want to take it one step further, and this is what is really an advanced tool that really fuels world-class athletes to turn on the gas, even when things are not going their way. After that emotion passes through you, you want to think of it next to you. So if I'm fearful, or if Nancy is fearful about what the CEO might say, then what would that fear tell her? So in other words, this is how she worked through it. You know, I recognize that I'm fearful about talking to the CEO and it's okay. And she released it. And then she thought of it, if that fear whispering in her ear saying, Nancy, if you don't want to be fearful speaking with the CEO, you need to do this. Because the message is that you can learn a lot from negative emotions. They're very valuable, but you need to neutralize them first, okay? And then the S in RRS is strategize. Whenever it comes into the near term, like things that are happening immediately, you must have control. There's no control over what the CEO is going to do or say for Nancy, right? But she does have control over what she's going to do. Okay, so it's very important to focus on the one or two things, the one or two most important things that you have control over to do your absolute best. So in Nancy's case, what she thought was most important that she would do is to practice the conversation, but also be firm when she ended her sentences. Because we're going to be talking about influence on October 8th, but a lot of women lose influence because they talk too much or their voice ascends at the end of a sentence. So in other words, in Nancy's case, it would be like, well, I would like to go in the middle of the meeting. What do you think? You know, and her voice would ascend. And we'll talk about that more in a couple weeks. But she's really was focusing on landing the plane at the end of her sentences. Okay, and also the amount of time that she would practice her delivery. She had control of those two things. All right, so we have run through a lot of things. I'm trying to stick to the time frame, which is a half an hour. It goes by super quickly. Like I mentioned in the beginning, what I am offering, not selling, but giving, is an opportunity to spend 30 minutes with me. And that is so I can help you work through some of these worksheets with you, customize it for you, but I want to know, I'm going to look at the, excuse me, the questions. All right. All right, so it looks like there's a lot of amazing comments and I don't see questions. So that's awesome. If you can stick with me for another minute, because we have one final thing that we're gonna do, and I'm gonna stay with you a little bit extra to do it. But before we do that, these are the free resources, and out of appreciation of your time with me, I want to offer these free resources. Applying for a free 30-minute discovery session with me. What are you going to get? I mean, besides the value, the monetary value, I want to know what you're going to get. What you're going to get is a little bit more clarity. You're going to make progress. You're going to move the needle. You're going to start to get clear on that next level of impact. If you already know what it is, then you're going to understand the tools to accelerate progress towards it. Okay, and we're also going to customize and work through some of the worksheets that we talked about today. So this is part 2 of this live masterclass series. We filled up most of these sessions in part 1. I have 5 left. So if you want to grab one of those, you just need to apply at www.sherylkline.com/discovery.